My name is Rob Covey. I am a senior project engineer in the stormwater department. Just so you know, we are recording the meeting and the presentation, so it'll be available later for others to look at if they were not able to attend today's meeting. Other county staff who assisted with the plan are also in attendance. The county also hired V3 consultants in 2022 to assist with the computer modeling and the development of this watershed plan. DuPage County Stormwater has previously completed 2 stakeholder meetings for the development of this plan. Based on feedback from those stakeholders and additional modeling and engineering effort by our consultant, a draft plan was created. As you may know, we are currently in the middle of the 30-day public comment period for the Lacey Creek Plan. Public comments are currently being accepted electronically through the portal, which is on our website, or written comments can be mailed directly to my attention at DuPage County. We will have that address up later in the presentation. We will also have time for questions and discussion at the end of the presentation. As we go, if you wish there to add questions that you might have into the Q&A question area on the screen there. Before we jump into the specifics of the plan, I'm going to provide some background and information on the county's watershed planning process. What is a watershed? We all live in a watershed. A watershed is an area of land which all drains to the same point. This can be as small as your backyard or as large as the Mississippi River Basin and any size in between. You can see on this slide the Mississippi River Basin covers about 40% of the contiguous United States. DuPage County is made up of all or portions of 6 major watersheds, including the East Branch DuPage River, the West Branch DuPage River, Salt Creek, Sawmill Creek, tributaries to the Fox River or the Des Plaines River. Since water does not follow municipal boundaries, the planning we do is on a watershed basis and might cover all or portions of more than one political entity, such as a town, village, or city. Lacey Creek is located in the east central part of the county, highlighted on this slide in yellow. The watershed is a little under 5 square miles in size and generally drains from east to west. It is one of several significant tributaries to the East Branch DuPage River. Lacey Creek consists of the main stem channel along with 8 smaller tributaries lettered A through H. The watershed plan took into account the main stem channel along with all of the lettered tributaries. The primary stakeholders for this watershed included the communities of Downers Grove, Lombard, and Oakbrook, as well as unincorporated DuPage County. Other stakeholders included the DuPage County Division of Transportation, the DuPage County Forest Preserve District, the Morton Arboretum, as well as Midwestern University. 2 stakeholder meetings were previously held with primary landowners as well as significant partners in the watershed planning process. The purpose of the stakeholder meetings was to gather data and fully understand any problem areas within the watershed and to collaborate on any proposed alternatives or solutions. Similar to other watershed plans developed by our department, the goals of the watershed plan include the following: mitigate the effects of urbanization on stormwater drainage, reduce damages caused by flood events, maintain or improve water quality in the streams, protect the function of all wetland and floodplain areas. In total, watershed plans have been developed for over 70% of DuPage County. Our department has also developed water quality only watershed plans throughout the county, which have as their primary goal of improving water quality and reducing impairments to our waterways. The primary purpose of the Lacey Creek Watershed Plan is to define watershed issues and identify potential solutions that will reduce and prevent future flood damages. The Watershed Plan also seeks to engage the public and stakeholders, inventory the watershed resources and physical system, including drainage ways, wetlands, riparian areas, recreation areas, and flood management facilities. Identify flood problems. When identifying flood problems, it is important to note that our watershed plans do not look into and investigate flooding and drainage concerns on a micro scale or for one or two parcels only. The plan seeks to develop solutions that are of a larger scale and are regional in nature. The plan also seeks to formulate potential alternatives and solutions, develop an acceptable plan, and having an approved plan in place will allow DuPage County and other communities and entities to apply for various state and federal funding and grants to carry out any alternatives or solutions. DuPage County has been conducting regional hydrologic analysis for various county watersheds since the mid-1980s. A sophisticated continuous hydrologic model called HSPF was utilized to simulate the hydrologic characteristics of the Lacey Creek watershed. The model simulates continuous hourly runoff for precipitation and meteorologic data for both surface and subsurface runoff. Other features such as evapotranspiration, snow and ice melt, evaporation, and temperature are all modeled within HSPF. Ultimately, the hydrologic model generates surface runoff for each individual rainfall event which occurred in DuPage County. The HSPF model generates runoff for a total of 184 unique rainfall events which have occurred over a period of 70 years. The next step in our process is to model the existing hydraulics of the stream with a computer program. For Lacey Creek, the FEQ hydraulic computer model is used to compute flows and water surface elevations based on the hydrology generated by HSPF. The existing conditions FEQ model incorporated detailed survey information, which was obtained in 2009, as well as supplemented with additional survey data obtained in 2011, 2022, and 2023. There were also over 20 major hydraulic structures within the watershed, which were modeled in detail. Approximately 115 surveyed cross-sections were also incorporated into the existing conditions model. Once the hydraulic model input is complete, the runoff generated for each of the 184 storm events is run through FEQ, where flows and elevations are calculated for each of the individual events. Ultimately, the existing conditions FEQ model was modified to analyze proposed alternatives within the watershed. Lastly, an economic model called DEC2 is used to compute flood damages for residential and commercial structures throughout the watershed. For Lacey Creek, we had low water entry elevations such as window wells or front doors from over 130 structures surveyed and incorporated into the DEC2 computer program. The economic model utilizes peak stream elevations, which were generated by FEQ, and damage curves, which are produced by FEMA, to determine flood damages at each structure along the stream corridor. For each simulated flood event by the FEQ existing computer model, flood damages can be computed by the DEC2 model for each surveyed structure. All damages for all structures can then be summarized for all storm events simulated by the FEQ existing conditions model. For different projects and alternatives, a modified FEQ model can then generate new peak elevations, which can then be rerun through the DEC2 model. A comparison can then be made between the total existing damages and total damages from the proposed conditions to see what kind of benefit and flood damage reduction is being realized. It is important to keep in mind that the economic model does not account for sanitary sewer backups, sump pump failures, or seepage through foundation cracks. It is, however, a useful tool to determine how well a proposed project or alternative might be performing to reduce flood damages and comparing various plan alternatives. Some other damages to be considered include associated damages and traffic damages. In the case of Lacey Creek, most of the damages resulting from flooding are in these two categories. Very few structures actually receive damages per the DEC2 model, but flood damages due to traffic delays, disruption, and detours have been significant. In the case of this watershed, the traffic delays not only affect area commuters, but also have a significant effect on critical facilities such as the Good Samaritan Hospital, the Downers Grove Fire Station number 3, and the Downers Grove Sanitary District Lift Station located just downstream of the tollway. Now, Derek Martin with V3 is going to take a deeper dive into the details of the watershed plan and the various projects and alternatives that were considered.
All right, thank you, Rob. I'm going to share my screen here. Just want to confirm everybody can see my screen. Is that working?
Yeah, we can see your presentation. Yep.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you, Rob. Again, I'm Derek Martin. I lead our natural resources group at V3. Also on the call is Christian Smith, who is our senior modeler and did a lot of the modeling that Rob had talked about earlier. I'm going to start by kind of talking through the identified problem areas, and I thought Rob did a really good job of kind of describing the process of bringing stakeholders together, having stakeholder meetings, trying to gather as much information as we can about the watershed so we can try to identify where the problem areas are. And then those problem areas, we would try to focus some of the more detailed or try to get some of the modeling that exists for the watershed, break it down into a little bit more detail in some of those problem areas, because then that helps us evaluate the true existing conditions and then also some of the solutions. So at the end of the day, while this is not meant to, I guess, insinuate that there are only 5 problem areas in the watershed, but at the end of the day, the watershed are the problem areas that, as Rob had described, that kind of rise to the watershed level or regional level from a problem perspective are on the screen, these 5, and I'll talk through them briefly. Problem area number 1, this is Highland Avenue that runs north to south, and I'm assuming everybody can see my cursor. Okay, I'm gonna take that as a yes. So problem area 1 is Highland Avenue. It overtops in storm events, in significant storm events, and as you notice, the kind of the circled area for that problem area is a little bit bigger, and we'll get into a little bit more detail of why we include that in problem area 1. Problem area 2 is flooding on Sterling Road between 37th and 39th Street. That's over here in a primarily residential area. Problem area 3, like Rob had talked about, is the Downers Grove Sanitary District's lift station down here. And again, although a lift station, is servicing homes and sanitary backup into homes isn't necessarily covered by flood mitigation, it is a direct impact to multiple residents of the county. So it is an area that draws our concern. So I would say these 3 problem areas were kind of in what we'd call tier 1 or the highest priority problem areas. And then problem area 4 is some severe erosion along tributary D down here by Virginia Street. Stream bank erosion a lot of times would fall more under the water quality, of which Rob said the East Branch already has a detailed water quality plan. But this erosion, when it's going through a residential area, you can have severe erosion that's jeopardizing structures and or utilities. So that was identified as well. And then problem area 5 is some intersection flooding at 40th Street and Glendenny. So these are the 5 problem areas we're going to focus on, and then we'll get into some of the alternatives. Right. So problem area 1, the Highland Avenue overtopping. There's approximately 1,000 feet of Highland Avenue that can become flooded, and anywhere from between a 10 and 100-year storm event, the extent of flooding varies, but at its peak is about 1,000 feet here. And as we discussed before, Highland Avenue is a primary access route to Advocate Good Samaritan Hospital from the north, which requires a rerouting around for those large storm events. So it's an access issue, and it's also an access issue for the Downers Grove Fire Department Station number 3. There are this problem area, and again, why, and we'll talk about this during the alternatives, but it is somewhat the result of some downstream constraints. A lot of times when you have a roadway that is underwater, if you think about it, a lot of people generally think of, well, that culvert that goes under the roadway must be undersized. And so water comes down, it hits the roadway, it stacks up because the culvert's too small and it flows over top the roadway and then drops into the downstream channel and goes away. What we'll talk about in a little bit here is that that's not really the case at Highland Avenue. There are bigger problems downstream that are contributing to this. And then the other thing we do want to mention about the Highland Avenue problem area, this problem area 1, is that for those that are familiar with the area, this is Lyman Woods that's upstream of Highland Avenue, and it's a very high quality natural area. And so we want to, as we're evaluating the flooding here and potential solutions, we wanted to keep that in mind, that it's a very sensitive area. So when we get into the alternatives for Highland Avenue, like I talked about before, if this is Highland, we have Lacey Creek coming down, flowing east to west, and we wanted to look and see what could we do at Highland to solve this problem. And one of the first things you would look at is maybe we're going to raise Highland Avenue up. It's, again, to find a solution for roadway overtopping, it's either increase the amount of flow that's going to go under the road or raise the road up so that all the flow will go under the road. And in this particular case, why we show further downstream here, we show this green area that's at Barneswood where there's another culvert. We show this green area where there's another culvert at Saratoga. And then we show kind of a section of stream down here. Those are all contributing factors to what's happening here. So when we looked at the modeling for this particular area, we said, okay, let's increase the capacity underneath Highland and see if that will do anything. And as it turns out, we could add 10 more culverts under Highland, but because of the downstream restrictions, this whole area at Highland is basically just acting like a level pool. And therefore, we can't just fix it. There's really no restriction coming underneath Highland. The restrictions are further downstream. So that led to the first potential of let's just raise this up. But we wanted to make sure we were looking at the most cost-effective potential. And we were trying to minimize the amount of impact that we would potentially have at Lyman Woods. So we said, well, what if we just increase the size of this culvert down here? Could we potentially lower the water that's ponding on top of Highland? And we looked at Saratoga or Barneswood, and that by itself wouldn't do it. So then we looked at Saratoga and said, maybe in combination, if we did these two, we could lower the water level on top of Highland. Or if we made some downstream channel improvements, these three, could we lower the water level? And at the end of the day, it was determined that it's most cost effective and actually most practical, just given some of the downstream constraints, to raise Highland Avenue. So we would raise Highland up. What we talk about here, there's the conveyance is preserved. So because this is almost like a level pool, we'll make sure that there is no impact to the conveyance under Highland, so that's not a problem. We are proposing a additional culvert under Highland just to account for those in excess storm events, those larger than the regulatory, what people refer to as the 1% or 100-year storm. So we want to make sure if we got like a 200-year storm, it would still go underneath Highland instead of when before it would go over Highland. And then once we kind of came to the realization that this is the best solution, the challenge was looking at different ways to raise Highland Avenue while minimizing impacts to the Lyman Woods. And that's also going to come into play from a regulatory perspective if this is a project that moves forward. So all of that was taken into account at the end of the day for Highland Avenue. It was recommended that we're going to raise Highland Avenue so that the pavement is above the flooding. And it is estimated to be a project cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million. Problem area 2 is an area of flooding between 37th Street and 39th Street. And again, about 900 feet of Sterling Road becomes inundated in some significant storm events. There's some structural flooding in this area. And again, because the roadway is flooding and some of the depths of the flooding on the roadway, it is an impact. It impacts the access to residents, both to get to their house and emergency access. So for problem area 2, the alternative, we focused on the modeling in this area because this is one of the areas of the model that we didn't have a lot of detail in the original model. So we provided more detail. We got more surveyed information and tried to understand a little bit better what was going on. We'd identified a culvert that was on the tributary that's a little north of where some of the flooding is down here to the south. And that culvert was restrictive. So what I talked about before, as far as if you have a culvert that restrictive, this is one of those cases that by providing a larger culvert, it would let more flow to go through, which would help lower the flooding elevation on Sterling. As you would probably suspect, if you provide a bigger culvert, you're allowing more water to go through. And what we don't want to do is impact downstream property owners. So there was a parcel here that the county already owned, and we looked at the opportunity of providing additional storage on here so that we would hold back some of the water in the event that we wouldn't have to make this as big, or even if we increase that a little bit, it would knock down some of the flows that are coming to that culvert. Still ended up with small increases in downstream flows, and there are still some high water levels that remain in the channel, although they're in bank. So if this is a project that were to move forward in the future, there is additional detail that would have to be fleshed out, and there would be some regulatory permitting that has to be figured out. And for all projects, again, any project that were to move forward in the future, they would have to comply with all of the county, not just the county, but the state and any federal regulations. But in this particular case, we looked at this. If we were able to do a project similar to this, we could have significant benefit in that inundation area, dropping the water levels by a little more than a foot. The estimated cost of this project was somewhere in the neighborhood of $800,000. So problem area 3 alternative, this is that lift station that was down on the west side of the watershed. This is, down closer to the East Branch. This is the lift station that's kind of if you see it here, it's kind of located as an island within all of the different floodplain and floodway that's through this area. And the access route to the lift station is this dark gray road. And right now that gets inundated. And if we have a big storm event and the lift station needs maintenance or something happens at the lift station, sanitary district personnel can't access that, which you really want your lift station operating during a large storm event because that's when the system's being overwhelmed. So to provide access, the solution is to try to raise again this access road all the way down to the lift station, and then offset. If you raise the road, you're going to block some flow now that used to just flow over top the road. So we would have to do some culvert replacements and then supplement that with some overbank conveyance on either the south or the north sides or both. And then where you're filling in the floodplain, you need to provide comp storage. So there would be some other areas where we maintain the amount of storage that's in this particular location. So obviously this is already a natural area. The property owners involved, the Morton Arboretum, the Forest Preserve District, and then ComEd, it's their transmission corridor. So there's a lot of coordination that would have to go into the property owners to make sure whatever's being proposed works with what the vision is for this natural area, while also providing the amount of flood protection desired. This estimated cost was about $2.3 million. So on to problem area 4. This is on Trib D down here off of 40th, and there's some severe erosion. This area was already identified in the East Branch water quality plan that Rob mentioned earlier, but this was also erosion, as you may expect, kind of continues over time, changes, and so there was some concern that there are potential structural damages that could happen if this continues to erode, and there are, utilities, electrical boxes, other things that are in side yard, rear yard easements that could be impacted by the erosion. So this is more of a stream bank stabilization project. It does improve water quality, and it does potentially relieve flood damages. Sometimes, again, people think of erosion as a water quality issue, but if you have erosion, a big tree comes down, blocks your waterway, and then you have a storm event behind that, those two could kind of work together to create flooding problems as well. So we looked at different bank stabilization measures. When you get close to a structure or utility, you might have to use more of a structural measure, something that can go vertically quick. In other areas, you could use more of a bioengineered measure, where maybe you lay back some banks, you use some native vegetation to help stabilize the banks. So again, this is somewhat consistent, or is consistent with what was presented in the East Branch Water Quality Plan. The estimated cost of this project is around $2 million. All right, and then finally for the problem area number 5, there's known flooding and has been for years at Glendenning Road and 40th down here. There's a large natural area around here, and this area ultimately drains north from Sterling Road. There's a storm sewer that runs north along Sterling Road that ultimately ties in to that other flooding problem that we talked about, problem area 2. And so we had looked at, could we provide a relief sewer down here that would help some of the flooding here, but wouldn't make the flooding worse to the north. And so one of the things that we looked at was upsizing the 15-inch existing storm sewer on Sterling here to a 21-inch storm sewer, which is consistent with the storm sewer that's north of 39th. Now it does only provide minimal reduction, less than 3 inches, and there are some slight increases north. So again, if this is something that rose to the level of a project that wanted to be implemented, we would have to make sure that the solution here was maybe combined with the solution to the north, or we would look at potential storage opportunities along here so that we could not make the problem to the north worse, which is part of the challenge when you're trying to fix flooding, because you either need to provide storage or you need to move water to a new location, and you don't want that water to create problems at that new location. This is also because of the natural area similar to Lyman Woods. We have to be careful about any kind of storage we're putting in and around this area, because we wouldn't be able to disturb the natural areas that are down at this location, and it makes the permitting pretty complex as we're contemplating projects. The estimated cost here is just under $1.5 million. So this slide kind of summarizes it. We have area 1, which is Highland Avenue. The plan recommendations: we want to raise Highland Avenue, raise the road profile so that will not become inundated in the 1% chance storm, and provide compensatory storage for that, and all of the other regulatory requirements that would go with that. And that's at a cost of just under $3 million from a conceptual cost estimate. Area 2 is this area over here on Sterling Road between 37th and 39th. We could increase the culvert size and provide storage, potentially lowering the flooding in this area by a foot or more. And that comes at a cost of, just under $1 million, about 800,000. Area 3 is the lift station over here to the west, just a little bit upstream of the confluence with the East Branch. The access to that lift station is currently down through this ComEd corridor and across the creek. We would like to raise that roadway, provide other conveyance routes to offset what the road's going to block from a flow perspective, increase or improve the culverts and provide comp storage in that area. And that's a $2.3 million project. Those are the primary. And then kind of the secondary projects would be the tributary D stream bank stabilization down here, trying to minimize structural damage and utility damage while also providing just stabilizing the waterway system and providing a water quality benefit. And then area 5 is this Glendenning. We talked about potentially adding a relief sewer to help lower some of the flooding in here. But we have to be mindful of the fact that we have this flooding to the north. So these are all of the different projects that came to the top. Again, just want to reiterate what Rob said. That doesn't mean there aren't other localized flooding problems in the watershed. It doesn't mean that there aren't other localized water quality problems in the watershed, and those were included in the plan, those type of problems, so that they would be eligible for funding. It usually helps to be in a watershed plan if you're trying to go after state or federal funding for different projects. So those were included in the plan. And so then I'll turn it back over to Rob and he can talk about the next steps.
All right, thanks, Derek. Great job. Yeah, just summarizing some of our next steps now. The draft watershed plan was presented to our stormwater committee on September 3rd, and they moved to open what we're in now, a 30-day public comment period. That public comment period will end on October 3rd. Only formal comments submitted through our online portal or sent via mail, written directly to my attention in the department, will be part of the comment response document. So if you do have further questions today, we certainly can, talk about those and answer those questions or concerns, but they would not necessarily be made part of that formal comment response document unless we receive them in one of those two ways. Either, like I said, directly through our website, there's a button there below the draft plan, or actual written comments can be mailed directly to me, to my attention. Also, at the conclusion of the public comment period, we would then make any necessary modifications or corrections to the watershed plan. And then at that point, we would anticipate bringing both the final draft Lacey Creek Watershed Plan and the comment response document to our stormwater committee. And then with their approval, it would go to our county board. We anticipate that in November. You want to move on to the next slide, Derek? And then, again, thank you for attending and participating in today's meeting. I did want to touch on two more things. I think Derek touched on them a little bit, but, there are some big numbers associated with some of these proposed alternatives, and there is no funding for anything that's outlined in this plan currently. So like Derek touched on, that, this does present an opportunity where maybe we can go and apply for some state or federal grants or other funding to try to move forward with some of these projects. But again, there is no current funding available for anything outlined here. And then the other thing was, again, Derek touched on it a little bit, was, any of these projects or alternatives would have to meet all the DuPage County ordinance requirements, as well as any other state, federal, local regulations that there might be. So these projects and alternatives are all done at a very high level, and obviously further design and detail would have to be looked at before any of these projects were to move forward. So I just wanted to point that out. So at this time, we can answer if anybody has any questions or further comments they'd like to discuss.
Is it possible to just speak out? I don't know whether you can hear me or not.
Yep. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I live on 3636 Sterling Road, and we just had that swale put in, I think it was about a year ago. That's on 38th, is between 39th and 37th. I don't know if you've got the picture of it, because it was part of it was on your deck. Not that you just showed today, but before. And
yeah. I don't. So yeah, I think it's just
yep, it's right over there.
Right in that area.
But that hasn't been in place for very long. So I don't really know if you've gotten any results or see how successful that project has been. Seems like you wouldn't want to spend $1 million until you've gotten a result from having already just done that.
Well, and Christian, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the county did provide us with those drawings, and because it was built and has the app, so that was already incorporated into the existing condition. So it's while it provided some benefit, it wasn't enough to eliminate the flooding in this area, at least based on the modeling results at the high level that we're looking at. So there's limited amount of space there and a limited amount of storage. And I would agree with you. You might not have seen that yet because we probably haven't seen
we haven't had a really big rain.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that you were saying that there was like water that goes over our street, which I've lived here for, I don't know, 12 years, and I've never seen water over that road ever. So it's just kind of weird. I don't really know if it's something that happened years and years ago. But I live downstream from there. And so the proposed culvert that you're considering putting in, yes, the large one. So it's 18 inches now. So you would increase that to 36 inches. That would be quite a lot of additional volume of water. And we did live in our home in 2013 when there was a huge rain event at that time. And the lot next to ours, their entire back of the house was underwater. So we have a narrow stream bed that goes behind our home. And our concern would be that the additional water that would be pushed downstream could potentially erode the stream bank behind our house. And then we could potentially, experience some flooding. So I just wanted to come on because I had seen this proposal. I knew that there was flooding issues along the stream. So I just my point of view would be that maybe wait before you would spend that money and see how this new area maybe maintains or helps prevent any additional flooding.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate those comments. And just so you know, part of the reason why on this one where we looked at the alternative is we were trying to provide storage to help offset that. But we understand even small increases from a regulatory perspective, especially in DuPage County, this would have to be refined in more detail to make sure that we're not adversely impacting downstream property owners. So we can't just quote unquote open the spigot and let it move downstream. We have
Well,
to,
that's good to hear at least.
yeah, we have to, it's very heavily regulated so that
Yeah.
we make sure that we're not impacting somebody.
Well, and
Yeah,
just so you are aware, the last thing I'm going to say is there is a lot next door to us where I was explaining whether they had such bad flooding previously. That is well, right now there's condemned buildings on it, and it would be something, I don't know if you might consider as another spot where you could have a water containment area at that location, because it is further down. There's really only, I think there's maybe about 3 more homes that would be impacted downstream prior to it going into Lyman Woods.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, we can certainly investigate that. And like Derek said, it becomes kind of an iterative process. Maybe that culvert winds up not being 36, maybe it's a 30. Maybe we're able to gain even some additional storage, on this lot that the county owns, and try to balance that out. So we're making improvements, but we're meeting our ordinance requirements and not having any adverse impacts downstream, near where you live. So
Okay. Thank you.
mhm.
I'm just leaving it on the last page in case somebody's trying to get all the contact information, or this is the link to where you can go to see the draft watershed plan that has all of the detail. It's a lot more comprehensive. There's a PDF.
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
You
Yes.
can.
Okay, I also live on Sterling. I am in the area closer to 39th, so we are definitely affected. And we definitely have had water over the road by our home. And we've lived here for 40 years. So I've been attending these meetings many times in the past. The only reason I even knew about this meeting is I arbitrarily found it on Nextdoor, which frankly, I was putting up something for sale, so I didn't even know about the meeting. How are you publicizing these meetings so that we can learn more about it? And yes, we definitely need some help on Sterling Road. We have a new home that got put in next door to us, and we were told before, because it was an empty lot for many years, that there would be some drainage being done prior to a home being built. And as far as we could see, that did not happen.
Yeah, so yeah, this meeting was there was a public notice, I know, put in the newspaper. I know not everybody looks at newspapers these days. It was on our website as well as, I believe, the Village of Downers Grove website. Are you in an unincorporated area then, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We don't live in the village. We're unincorporated. We're considered York Township here.
Okay.
So, no paper newspapers, we don't get it all. Now that you have my contact information so that I could participate today, can it be something that you just email or text so that I could know what's happening and in the future?
Yeah, certainly we can do that. And yeah, maybe if you're able to send me an email, my email address is right there on the screen. And
Okay.
then I'll have your contact information, and then I can reply back and send you those documents as well. So
Yeah, over the years, we've had many people coming to check the water that sits on our property, goes through our property, goes to Sterling Road through our backyard. And we've been told many things over the years that have not come to fruition. I agree with the previous speaker, they tore up our roads. I think it might have been 2 years ago and put in some sewer things down the middle of Sterling. But, and we have not had a major rain to test that. But we've been here a long time, so we've definitely have history. I have pictures I've submitted to this committee over the years. So, yeah, we would definitely appreciate something being done.
Beth,
Yes.
you can also, the way I heard about this meeting was you can go on to DuPage County website and sign up for notifications for meetings and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is Julie. I'm with Downers Grove. I was going to suggest the same thing. You can go to DuPage County and get information. They'll send out, it's not a lot, but they'll send out, Stormwater will send out emails. And then also if you wanted to, DuPage County, or excuse me, Downers Grove has an e-news, and we had it in our e-news. And it's just, the e-news for Downers Grove is just a weekly email of what's going on. And the DuPage County Stormwater is I'm not sure if it's weekly, but it's occasional.
Okay, well, we've not received that ever, so I just didn't know.
Yeah, you have to sign up to receive them. So I would recommend going up and signing up for them so you know what's going on.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.